Hey guys, welcome to Oddcast. As you're all aware, Wakanda Forever has come out, and we want to talk about it. So today, I am being joined by longtime friend and friend of the show, Tiffany.
Hello.
She'll be my co-host as we discuss the good and the bad of Wakanda Forever, Black Panther 2. So that said, let's dive right into it. So Tiffany, I think I kind of want to start with overall, what was your take? Was this a good movie, bad movie? What are your
I
thoughts?
think it was a really good movie. I enjoyed it. Um,
Uh, I I think that a lot of people left the theater kind of in like a shell shock, like I got to think about it, kind of. Like I'm not sure. I got to sit on it for a while. I got to sit on it and see what my thoughts are.
Initially, yes. As soon as it was over, I don't know if you remember, but I said to you how I don't really know how I feel about it. I definitely at that point didn't think it was a bad movie. I knew I liked it, but it was just certain things that I was trying to wrap my mind around if whether or not they could have done it better or if it was just fine.
Yeah, no, and I think I'm in the same boat. Like it took me. I wanted to sit on it for a while. I liked
Hmm.
it, but it was a question of what were the things that could have been done differently, or what would I have changed if anything. So I think before we kind of dive into those events, I did want to offer this up. So if you haven't already seen the movie, I don't know why you would have clicked a thing that said spoiler review and discussion, but you're here, and now's your opportunity to leave. I'm just saying, you can get
Yeah, I went
out. It's
out.
fine. We understand. Come back after you've watched it. Go watch it. It's still in theaters. Make it happen. It's worth watching. Uh, so I guess I'll start with kind of what I think didn't work for
Okay.
me, and you can obviously agree or disagree with this, but I think there was a lot of like forced emotion. Like it didn't come across as like a natural flowing emotion. Instead, they took Chadwick's death, and I love the fact that they started and they addressed it, like, and they did it in a way that you can connect with. Like you have all the intelligence in the world, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily able to save the ones that you
Right.
love. Looking at you, Anakin, you had all the skill, but you couldn't save the ones you love. But
Anakin.
Shuri had all the intelligence and still couldn't save, the person that she cared about the
Right.
most. And I think that was really nice. Like, don't get me wrong, not nice as in the sense of like, oh, he's
It's
dead,
real life
but
though.
nice in the sense of, yeah, nice, exactly, in the sense of that's reality. Like, reality is you can have all this stuff and still not necessarily save the thing that you love the
Right.
most. And I thought that was really a great take on it. But then I felt like every 10 minutes they tried to bring him up, like, oh, here's a thing.
Hmm.
Like, he was just, his presence was too present in the film, in my opinion, for the story.
How do you how do you think that works as far as people grieving, like in a real life scenario? I haven't lost anyone really, really close to me, so I don't know how it feels.
I've lost individ So I've lost people, and like it's real easy to go down the spiral of like that grief spiral. Um, but I mean, I think that part of it is the celebration of somebody's life, but again, I mean, everybody copes
Yeah.
differently, and this movie focused on that as its theme. But like, I'll hold up the candle to a different Disney property that I think you've seen, the movie Up.
Nope,
You haven't seen
I
Up?
have not.
Okay, okay. Well, then I'm gonna have to think about it a little bit more. It's the idea of there is loss towards the beginning of the film or story, and it gets addressed, but like it's not present in everything that happens. It's just there are subtle
Mm,
reminders that you can connect with the character connecting with that moment. And I feel like they did really well with that with some aspects, but then they tried really hard with
okay.
others. Even okay, so as you know, when we first finished the film, I said, "Oh, this was a really good bookend for Phase
Right.
4." And I had said that because the start of Phase 4 is Spider-Man: Far From Home, where Peter is dealing with grief,
Hmm.
and then in this movie it's Shuri dealing with grief, and then ending with her burning the funeral garb, which creates a weird hole because I think she wore the same outfit to the other funeral, but that's besides the point. The In Far From Home, Peter deals with the grief and loss of Tony, but Tony is not present in every
Right.
moment.
Okay.
Like he's there. That's the plot points, and Tony is present, or the absence of Tony is present, but he's not like every time you see that character. Every time you see Peter, he's not like, oh man, my life sucks without Tony.
Right.
Like he's not. That's not him. But I guess he was more grieving, and Shuri is more angry.
Yeah. She's definitely angry.
And I think that it was a weird spread of grief, I guess, because again, with Peter's story, it was there were like subtle plot points going on that didn't relate to the grief, but I felt like everything in this movie was about the loss of the Black Panther and the loss of Chadwick Boseman.
Right. I get it.
And I'm not saying that that's like a 100% bad thing. I definitely think that the movie did a good job of handling that grief, but I just felt like it was too
Hmm.
present.
I can see that.
And then, like, when the queen dies, her that actually carried an emotional gravitas to the story with it, um, which I think that they had diluted the passing of T'Challa because they had talked about it so
Gotcha.
much that it watered down the emotional punches because they kept jabbing with that, and that's why like then the punch of the queen is like it carries a weight, but too many jabs made it to where like any really cathartic moments or moments that would have carried a lot of emotional weight and depth, I think, were watered down because of just
You're kind
oversaturation.
of kind of grieved out.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to phrase it. Yeah, being grieved out. Um, but I mean, aside from that, I think everything else in the movie it clicked. Like it moved at a good pace, and at the end, it left you wanting
Hmm.
more. And I think some of the characters' reaction to that grief worked better than others. Like Akonye, I felt her emotional grief and loss,
Oh yeah.
and Queen Ramunda, I also felt her grief and loss instead of Shuri, who was the main character and focal point of the story. So it's just interesting, but again, it might just be that her grief didn't and catharsis didn't come until the end because she was burying it down and
Hmm.
instead replacing it with rage.
That could be. I know
Um,
if there was any part where I was more emotional was during the talk between the queen and Okoye and the whole making her step down. That one got me in the gut. I was like, man, that
yeah, like the two of them, like they acted the shit out of that scene. I was like, hell yeah, Angela Bassett, fucking rock it.
it was. Oh, that one was tough. It was like really because they both made good points, and it was just like,
Absolutely.
well, I don't know. It's like seeing your. I mean, not that they're parents, but it's like when your parents are arguing or something. You're just like tennis match. Like, oh, well, damn. You hate to see the breakup, but it happens.
Yeah, and I mean, but yeah, that carried like a big emotional weight. And then of course, there's a Wakanda television series coming, and the big rumor now is that you're going to follow Okoye as she becomes a Midnight Angel.
Hmm.
I think is what their organization is called, which is
That's the blue
that
suit, right?
blue
Basically.
techno suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, her and the other girl. Yeah, like they look great, and I mean, people were all ready to watch a Dora Milaje show, so watching them go around fighting crime is awesome.
Hmm.
And since at the end they broke Ross out and they have to do something with that character, um, I mean, I'm guessing that that's all going to be addressed in that show. And then before we get to the big thing, I guess I'll address the other thing that's, of course, going to be a spin off show, which is Ironheart coming to Disney Plus, I think,
Hmm.
next year. And I just wanted to say that of all the characters in this film, Riri Williams, I think, definitely stole a lot of shine because, like, her character was great.
She was great. She did
Uh,
everything you're supposed to do. Her responses, her comments, everything. It was just like I would say, whatever I would say. It
Well, yeah,
was
because she
great.
reacted as a real person would.
She
Like, a
did.
real person thrust in these situations, she's like, nah, I don't trust that food. No. He's making you change clothes? That's some supervillain stuff.
Yep.
Like, nailed it. And I love the fact that they did what it took 3 movies for them to do with Peter is you can't give these characters that are supposed to be super smart upstarts, you can't give them everything all at once. You
Right.
gotta make them work for it. And so, with Peter, it was he had all that money for so long that they took it away from him after the events of No Way Home. And I love
Mhm.
the fact that with Riri, they were like, yeah, she built her own Iron Man suit, and then we gave her vibranium to upgrade it, and now we're taking it away. You're,
You
you're back
cannot
to
take
square
that back
one.
home.
Yeah, that's staying here. You're gonna have to figure your own stuff out. Bye. And then they kicked her out. I was like, that's great. So she's there. They introduced her. They worked her backstory. Like, excellent. Just masterclass in how to introduce a character real quick, and then make it to where you want to see more of that character, but not necessarily in a movie yet.
Right.
Because of course we know that there's a bunch of stuff coming. But I thought that was such a fun takeaway for Riri because yeah,
It was
the
cool.
MCU is going to need smart characters because all their villains are smart. Like smart is kind of the name of the game in the MCU, unless you're Thor or Hulk.
Oh,
Like, but Hulk, not like
Thor
Smart
is
Hulk, Professor
smart,
Hulk.
kinda.
You'd never recognize him in that disguise, especially not if he goes like this. Um, and that brings us, of course, to the main antagonist of the story, or the main, I guess, antagonist, foil, maybe foil, antagonist, which is Namor. And I hear you already in the comments. If you haven't seen the movie, you're like, that's not how you say his name. His name is Namor. No, they changed it in the MCU. They changed his origin story to making him the boy with no love, and the end of that is Namor. And I'm not gonna lie, it works better. I just like saying it that way. And I love the fact that the MCU took this character and like changed him because he needed to be changed. Because if you just dropped him the way he was in the comics, you're gonna look at it and be like, didn't DC already make this movie?
Right.
This is just Aquaman, but like the Marvel version. But it's not because Submariner, of course, was first.
True.
But the origin story overlaps like horrendously. Like he's born in Atlantean, and then he's between the land world and the water world because his mother was of the ocean and his dad was a fisherman. Like it's just if you
Yeah.
just took the Aquaman movie with Jason Momoa and were like, oh, let's make this Marvel. That's the story of Namor, but this is Namor
That's
who
gonna happen with a lot of, well, not with a lot, but there are a couple of other characters that kind of overlap like that a little bit.
yeah, like I mean, when Darkseid shows up in Justice League, you're like, oh, so Thanos.
Right.
I've seen this, but it's not. Or like Deadpool and Deathstroke. Like there are things that are similar, and each comic book company
Hmm.
got their own version out first, and then saw the success and did their own way. Like Darkseid is first, but Thanos was the first one in the market for film,
Right.
and Deathstroke and Deadpool. I don't even think you could make the argument that they're based on the same root character anymore because they're just radically different.
Yeah.
But Aquaman and Submariner, yeah, I can see that. Like I love the fact though that they left him an asshole.
Is he an asshole?
I feel like he's kind of a jerk. Like he's a calculated jerk, which I like. I like the fact that like you could tell his motives, but like you don't know like is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? And they didn't do the stupid anti-hero route, which I've
Hmm.
become kind of sick of, which is like I'm a bad guy, but I'm just misunderstood. No, no, no. He's purposefully doing the things that he is doing. He's not
True.
like, no, it was an accident. I didn't mean to kill those civilians. No, he straight up was like, no, I'm gonna flood your streets and kill everybody. Like, let's do it.
Basically.
Like, yeah, perfect.
Okay, I'll let you
Show
have it.
up. Yeah, I enjoy the fact that he's essentially bipolar. Like, one
Yeah.
minute you're like, oh, I can kind of empathize with him, and then the next minute you're like, whoa, 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 whoa.
He's like, fuck this
You
shit.
went
Your mother's
yeah,
dead. You're
bridge too
queen
far.
now.
Yeah, bridge too far. Yeah, like he shows up, floods everything. I love the fact that they've got water grenades. I was like, what a cool
I
idea. Like,
love the water grenades because You never know. Like the scene with the ship where they're like swimming in this massive net full of water
Yeah,
grenades. That was
yeah,
awesome.
exactly. And it's because it's that built up like they developed some kind of technology. I was like, awesome. And speaking of built up technology, so it's not Atlantis in this. They didn't make them Atlanteans, and instead they made them Talochan,
I looked at it the other
Talocon.
day. Talokan?
I know that. Yeah, I know that the city is named after the one of the realms of the dead, the
Hmm.
realm for people who die because they drowned in water. That's what the city's named after, and I think that Kugler nailed it. Like the fact that he made it to where it was like built vertically instead of horizontally, because these people essentially live without gravity, is
Hmm.
great. Like perfect. That's the way that I would expect an underwater city to be built. They of course had the pyramids and stuff, and a badass throne. Yeah, I
Yes.
get it. It's not the Iron Throne, but that Megalodon vibranium tooth dome. Yeah,
It
that
was
or
dope.
throne. Perfect. It was. I was like, excellent. I love the feather stuff underwater. It looks cool. Like the fact that they took the culture and brought it on because it's that indigenous culture, but
Mhm.
like reimagined as if it weren't touched by colonizers' hands.
Well, they couldn't get down
Um,
there to touch it.
yeah.
They
Well,
were
and it's
underwater and
interesting because
Wakanda was behind the shield.
yeah, because Wakanda is of course hidden, but they weren't. So that is why Namor does not like the surface world because he doesn't trust the people in it. So he's not willing to just extend the olive branch. Uh, I also loved the different takes on the heart-shaped herb. Like
Hmm.
when Bast led her people to the heart-shaped herb, of course, it founded Wakanda and it created the Black Panther, who's her avatar. And then you had I'm not gonna be able to think of the name now, but the essentially the god of rain is who uh, Kul Khan. I just have to say it the way that M'Baku says it. Kul Khan.
Kukulkan.
Uh, uh, the winged serpent god. Yeah, he's also the god of rain, which is interesting. He's the god who shows up before rain, and
Hmm.
I love that concept because so conspiracy theory. I'm going to put on my aluminum foil hat. It's not even a conspiracy theory. So in
Okay.
the comics, Namor is one of the first mutants,
Right.
and if you were to think of it, the god who comes before the rain, right?
Hmm.
So before the reign of mutants show up, because now they're just going to start like just appearing. Looking at you, Miss Marvel. Namor is of course one of the first. And he even straight out said it. He said he's a mutant. I mean, he
Yeah.
didn't mean it in that way, but he meant it in that way.
He he's very smart, very,
Uh,
very, very intelligent. So
yeah,
he's very methodical, and he knew what he meant. He knew that.
yeah. He's extremely methodical, which I really like. Which is why I always like to pose this question: do you think that he threw the fight at the end in that ending scene where he was fighting Shuri?
I don't, cause he got his back blown out. I'm sorry. I don't. He was on land for too long. They were in that radiation or a heat chamber, sucking out all the moisture, and then you get blown in the back with fire from like an engine. Or I don't. I mean, he maybe could have gone a little bit longer if that didn't happen, but I think
Yeah,
he was gonna go. I
I
don't think
feel
he was
like
faking.
I think he might have been pulling punches so that she could get the advantage because he was thinking of his people, or at least he's gonna play it off that way, and I'm fine with that. Like
Hmm.
that's hashtag heel heat. That's how you do it. Like, oh,
True.
I didn't lose. I meant to lose. You really think you could beat me? You can't beat me. Uh,
I can rip off
I
your wings
speared
though.
you. Yeah. uh, he speared her like right through the gut, and then midriffs by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Cool. But no, and then something that I didn't even think of, and I know that in our previous discussions with one another, you didn't really think of it either, and that is there was like this weird moment where he was showing Shuri the underwater city that they kind of had like this this moment where like it seemed almost like they were going to go a romantic angle, which is kind of interesting. Like they always do that in Marvel movies, and it's interesting to me to see it happen when it's a female led movie,
Hmm.
because then the choices are a little bit more to the extremes as like who you're going to go for, and that of course is the two options that they kind of presented Shuri with were Namor, who she kind of had this weird connection with that you can almost ship them together, and then I'd say the other person that she actually had that moment with is actually M'Baku.
I always miss these connections. I don't know if I'm just not a romantic or I go blind to stuff like that, but I would have
Well,
maybe M'Baku, but I still wouldn't have thought that because to me they just seem like another brother and sister. But
no, and that's what I'm saying. And sometimes it's that type of connection that you know is the way that it should go. And I don't think that Shuri and M'Baku are a good pairing. I just think that like they had dropped like those subtle, like could you see them together type of things. But with Namor, they definitely pushed it more into like that category of like, hey, I know we're opposites, but you're pretty prideful and I've got prejudice. We can make this happen. Uh, and I just they had kind of that we're rivals but rivals to lovers trope. I could see it happening, but I think that it wouldn't come to fruition until at least the second movie or
yeah,
Namor's first movie, because we know that not all is going to be well in paradise, because Namora not happy with her cousin, and I think the other dude's name is Atla, the guy who's got like the hammerhead
hmm,
helmet. Also, the second in command right now, but probably also not happy with the fact that they essentially lost the war,
right.
even though Namor lost his battle, but
They
they
pretty
were
much
not
won
losing
theirs.
theirs. They had finished. Like he could have flipped it. Like they could have flown up in that ship and been like, Namor is like, I'm here to surrender, and then like they're like, no, don't surrender. If you kill him, we'll kill all these people, and Shuri would have had to figure something else out.
Yeah. What do you think of? Um, I've been hearing rumblings about M'Baku being just comedic relief and not really having any purpose as far as his masculinity or being a strong male lead since it's a woman, I guess, led movie. Like, I thought
I
he was
mean,
funny in the
I
first one, so I didn't really see a big difference.
well, I thought he was more serious in this one actually. Like in the first movie, yeah, he had comedic moments, but in this one, I feel like he was kind of a guide. Like
Right.
him and if it is him, I don't think it is, but Killmonger, um, I think both of them acted as guides for Shuri. And then, I mean, Namor is an antagonist, and yeah, he's a dude, but like I didn't. I think M'Baku had more serious stuff in this movie because like he's one of the first ones to engage in combat.
Right.
He changes his mind about war. Like he went with, we need to crush these people before they attack us, to maybe we should try and find another route. And then even at the end, I'm pretty sure that he shows up and he becomes like the figurehead ruler is what I think he's going to be like. But to me, he has the best interest of Wakanda on his mind. He's not like, because he even says that to Shuri. She's like, I want to go to war, and he's like, I don't want that for me, and I don't want that for my people. Like that's,
Right.
to me, that ruins the aspect of like a comic relief character, because he kind of is the one who sets her straight. Like he's the only one that can talk sense to her.
Mm.
Riri tries but can't get through. Nakia tries and doesn't get through,
Yeah.
but he says it in a way that she respects. So I don't think that I'd buy that he's just comic relief, because he didn't. To me, it didn't read that way, anyways.
I agree. Um, Speaking of Killmonger, though, I like how he showed up.
So again, I'm in the boat that I don't think that's him. Um,
Oh
I don't think that
no,
that's actually
but
Killmonger. Um, I have my own theory, but now I've kind of disproven it myself. Um, my theory as I was watching it is like, I don't know a lot about African gods. There's only a handful that I can name.
Hmm.
And of them, of course, you have Bast, who I didn't realize it, but she's in Thor: Love and Thunder. Uh, she's at Zeus's, whatever that pantheon place is,
Hmm.
as is Namor's god is also there. But Moon Knight, of course, introduced the idea of the living avatars on Earth type of
Right.
thing, and how the gods are kind of there and they're going to meddle. Like, if there are gods left, they're meddling, essentially. And Thor: Love and Thunder, of course, sets up the idea of the afterlife, because that's where Heimdall and Jane are. And Black Panther sets up the idea of the ancestral plane,
Hmm.
and that you control, like, what you can see. Uh, and of course, Killmonger shows up, but I don't think it's him, because I don't think Killmonger's dead.
So, well, I don't either. So then, does she not go to the ancestral planes because the herb
So
is synthetic? So does it just give her like a hallucin? Is it like a
it could be
hallucinogen or something?
it could be, but it could also be like, because oh man, now I'm not gonna be able to think of her name. Hippo Lady. Hippo Lady does say that there's like thousands of realms between. So
Hmm.
what I was trying to get at was, in the throne room when it gets set on fire. If you were
Hmm.
to flip that throne room upside down because of the placement of the chair, it looks like a spider.
Okay.
And of all the gods that I can name, Anansi is one of the ones that I know.
Hmm.
Uh, and I know that he does not like Bast, at least based on the folklores that I have heard. The two of them they don't get along. So to me, if I were a trickster god, the best thing that I could do would be to corrupt the avatar of my enemy.
True.
And I feel like the best way to do that would be to get under her skin. But again, if you go back and look at the throne room when it's on fire, there would actually be 10 legs, and that's not a symbol for him. He has 8 legs just like a normal spider. It just happens because of the way that the throne looks, that if you flip it upside down, it looks like fangs to me. Could be wrong. I'm just saying that, like, to me, I think that that's part of it. But in the comics, Killmonger does come back because he's not dead. He's
Right.
housed in their graveyard area, but not
Yeah.
dead.
I
And
didn't
I
think he was
think
dead
that,
either.
and I think bringing him back is kind of a cool idea. But I also think that there's going to be something to do with the dead coming, because like they're doing too much with it to just let it go. Like,
Hmm.
we know that Jane is quote unquote dead, but why even show Valhalla if you're not gonna? It's the rule of the gun. Why have the gun on stage if you're not going to use it?
Yeah.
It's going to come into play. I just don't know when. Like, at what point is it going to come into play? Uh, but yeah, so it's very. I mean, Killmonger being there is great, and I thought, again, him being an advisor was fun.
Yeah. It was.
Uh, yeah, and I mean, Michael B. Jordan is just such a good actor that, like, you can essentially have him show up anywhere, and I'd be like, oh, okay, Michael B. Jordan's talking. What's going on?
Not one of my favorites.
So Killmonger wasn't the only villain, of course, to make a reprise. The other one that showed up is, of course, Val,
Hmm.
who, man, talk about like weaving a story together through all of Phase 4. Like, she showed up kind of in the middle of things, but she's definitely got her hands in a lot of pots.
But they were
Mostly because she's the
married?
direct. Yeah, to Ross.
Like,
Like, I was like, what a great way to like tie it all together. Like, okay, ex-wife.
which would explain her how she treated him. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're the head of the CIA, like, a director, and then of course you've got a foreign affairs agent, like, it was a weird pairing, but I love it because it was a twist that I didn't see,
Hmm.
and then they did it, and I was like, oh, okay, okay, I'm on board. Um, and we know that Val is putting a team together for Thunderbolt Ross, who, of
Right.
course, I don't know if it's going to be Thunderbolt Ross anymore because the actor, of course, passed away. And in this movie, they had a new Secretary of State because, again, the actor passed. And they did pick up Harrison Ford to play Ross. And now there's, of course, the rumor that he's no longer a general, but instead is the President of the United States, which means that you get a Harrison Ford president again, which kind of cool. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, I'm interested to see. So then the real question becomes: are they going to do the Red Hulk with him, or are they going to do the Red Hulk with somebody else? And I
Wait,
guess more of those questions will be answered when New World Order comes out.
I just
And,
the whole. I'm sorry, the whole Harrison Ford thing. All I hear in the back of my head is "Get off my plane."
yeah, you got to kick him off. Like, and if you guys don't already know, I don't want Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross. I'm actually going to put the link to the video description in the bottom. I talked about it a lot. I am not a fan of that idea, but I guess if he's not going to retire and Disney wants to pay him a lot of money, then I guess Disney's going to pay him a lot of money and he's not going to retire.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, Thunderbolt Ross, now the president. I guess I can kind of see it. Speaking of not retiring a character, one of the biggest complaints about Black Panther 2 was, of course, you know what? Every time I think of like these kinds of comments, all I can think of is in South Park. They took our job. Except instead of talking about foreigners, they're talking about women.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know the biggest complaint was, oh man, I can't believe they just take away T'Challa like that. Like he's such an important character in the comics. I can't believe they're going to replace him with Shuri. Shuri was also Black Panther in the comics,
Right.
and this movie kind of said, "Hey, you remember how you were complaining that we got rid of T'Challa? Guess what? We didn't get rid of T'Challa."
Because I mean, it at the end of the day, and I think the Queen said it in the movie. It's a mantle.
Yeah,
So you drink the heart shaped herb, you're a Black Panther.
and it's not even that, but like, imagine being upset that a female goddess, the mantle of a female god, is now being worn by a female.
Well, see,
I can just feel people clutching their pearls right now.
that to me is the difference in people who watch the movie that are Marvel fans versus people who watch the movie because they're Black Panther fans.
I can kind of see that.
Because they're two different people. I mean, sometimes it overlaps, but you have people who love Black Panther, don't know anything about Marvel, don't care.
That's me. I only know a little bit about the comics. I have friends who put me to shame. Like friends who put me to hardcore shame. Like if I had Alan or Eric sitting next to me
Hmm.
and I was talking about it, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, in issue blah 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 blah,"
Right.
and then they talk about things that are so far beyond me and my grasp of what I know. Like
But you're
you know,
still a fan of Marvel
a
and
little
just the
bit.
whole storytelling of the Marvel universe
I'm a fan
versus.
of. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a fan of stories in general.
Hmm.
So I love the MCU because they've put together this really big tapestry story, and I want DC to succeed in their attempt to do something similar. And
Hmm.
if they don't want to do something similar, just give me separate stories, and I'm okay with that. I know the characters,
Right.
so you don't have to do the exact same thing. But yeah, I want to see that story, and that's why I love the idea of legacy, which is the other thing that Phase 4 has done, which is it laid the groundwork, because in almost every movie or show, they set up another hero for down the line. And this one did the same thing, because of course now you have T'Challa, who
Hmm.
I'm guessing will take the helm of the Black Panther when he becomes a young adult, and become another Black Panther, uh, probably to go along with the Young Avengers, because they are the ones who have been showing up the most, uh, before you've got mutants. So I'm just saying, like, they've got like all this stuff coming, and they're setting up those pieces now. Phase 4 was kind of weird because of that, but it's hard when you don't have a villain, but instead have
Hmm.
a conceptual villain. Like Phase 2 was distrust, and I would argue is probably the weakest of the phases, and then
Hmm.
Phase 4 has been grief. But that introduction of T'Challa at the end is great, and of course it takes place where him and Ngoya decided to hide their child.
Yeah, I like that they did when they showed Haiti, since that's where they were hiding the child, that it was a beautiful Haiti because the country is beautiful. It's not all
It's
I
not the
get
stock footage.
Right. And then they named him Toussaint, which is to me even bigger because that's a very powerful name.
Yeah, well, I mean, the revolutionary responsible for the liberation of Haiti
Right.
is I think that's how they said it in the film, and
Yes.
I kind of like that pronunciation
That's how they
better because
pronounce
to
it.
me it sounds, yeah, I
Yes.
love that pronunciation a lot
Not our
better because that
Haiti.
to me is very Polynesian because of course with them they have Tahiti and
Hmm.
Maui, so to me saying Haiti
It makes sense.
fits when I think of island nations. Like, okay, that that sounds right, that clicks.
Yeah.
So I liked them saying it the right way. I did like Pretty Haiti even better because again, it's not stock footage. Like there's so much more culture and
Hmm.
um, there's so much more to all the places that we see, quote unquote, see all the time on film and stuff. That's why it's so interesting to me to like see movies, show them in a different light,
Right.
like showing Egypt not just the desert, but the actual urban areas in Moon Knight,
Hmm.
and showing Afropunk, and now I guess Mesopunk, is that what I would call it? Mesoamerican punk, and the way that Talochan is created, like,
Right.
or Talocan. Just I think that that's a great look, and I want to see more of that.
Yeah.
So like the idea of taking these indigenous cultures and saying what would they be if they weren't impacted by colonization, by conquistadors, by external forces that limited their cultural growth,
Hmm.
but still allowed them to have technology. I think that that's a fun question, and I think it's one that Kang is going to address. And
Kang.
the yeah, and the burning of those funeral garbs at the end definitely felt like a signal, like, okay, we're now done. We're over the grief phase,
Hmm.
and now we're going to move into the next phase. So phase 5 is right around the corner because, of course, we've got Quantumania, and that'll be the next phase in the multiversal saga. So yeah, I mean, Marvel still got me. They still
Yeah.
got a story to tell, and I'm still gonna keep watching it.
I was gonna say I'm still excited. I don't really feel worn out by any stories yet. I'm still, wanting more.
Yeah,
So
and I think that the reason for that is because even though it's all part of the same universe, all the stories feel different.
yeah.
Like, and it might just be that you have different directors, different writers, but each one has brought something else to the table, which I think that's the way to do it. And I think this one definitely accomplished that. I mean, Coogler's such a great director, and I'm interested to see him do more. I don't know if he's going to be working on the Midnight Angels, but I wouldn't mind seeing him do it because Wakanda is near and dear to him,
Right.
and I think seeing what you could do with those characters would be cool. Uh, and at the same time, like seeing what Marvel's got planned next for Riri and Ogonia, and
Oh,
I mean
she's so
it's just
awesome.
all these cool characters. Like, and of course with The Walking Dead ending, they've got her for the long haul. I'd take it, and yeah, I mean I'm just looking forward to it. But if you haven't already gotten the chance, guys, we highly recommend that you go check out Wakanda Forever. If you think that we were wrong, let us know in the comments. If you think that we were right, let us know in the comments. And while you're down there, hit the like button. Go ahead and subscribe and hit the little bell for notifications. That way you'll know when our next review or discussion goes up. Thanks for joining. This has been Oddcast. This has been Joe and Tiffany. And you stay safe out there.